that, we will now bring on our friend Carter Hutton to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Carter, how you doing? How you feeling about the Leafs? They're my President's Trophy winner this year. Tell me why I'm an idiot.
Well, you are, but I don't know. I'm surprised you went with them. I know you're Rangers through and through.
You can come on this show anytime you want if you're going to start like that.
Yeah, he left the door open. I had to kick it in. But no, honestly, I'm high on him this year. It's hard not to be, right? This is a team that I think at this point, almost the regular season seems like a formality, right? It's just, okay, where are they going to place? They're going to get in. They're going to get their points. What can they do in the playoffs? And for me, I think it's the excitement of a new coach, a new situation where they've added a few guys on the back end. I think Joseph Wall now, can he stay healthy? Anthony Stolarz, there's a few question marks, but for me, it's what are they going to do in the playoffs? And I think it's at this point, anyone who watches the Toronto Maple Leafs or have been around this team are a little bit hesitant. They're just like, let me see what they're going to do come playoff time.
What is going on with Jake McCabe? What is his status and should we expect to see him back sooner, later, opening night?
I believe opening night. I think for him, this is just a management thing too. Jake played. I spent 3 years with him in Buffalo. This guy's a warrior. Trust me. If there's anything that's going to hold, like an absolute beast, this is a guy you want on your team. He was a leader in our locker room, and I think for him, this is just trying to set himself up for success, right? And again, I also think that this team is at a point now with their maturity and where guys are at. They're going to make sure that they're ready to go at the right time. So I feel like this is more maintenance than anything. But again, you never know what's going on behind the scenes. Sometimes we try to get as much info as we can, but it's tricky, right? They keep things pretty tight sealed when it comes to injuries nowadays.
I'm sure you watched the game last night, but I saw a clip. I didn't tune in at all, but I saw the goal that Laurent scored last night. A heavy shift from the Leafs. I actually sent it to Vic, and I was like, who's that team in blue? I don't recognize them. But does this team feel a little bit heavier? We know they got heavier on the back end, adding OEL and adding Tanev. But even up front, like, is Ryan Reeves going to play every game? Like, he was scratched a lot last year. What does this team look like as far as being heavy?
I do like that size on that line too. Lawrence is a guy that, obviously it's weird watching the way the NHL works, right? A guy that's on a Stanley Cup winning team and now he's fighting on a PTO to try to get a contract and get his feet in the door. But, having that experience, and I think for Revo last year, again, this is a guy that's probably exceeded expectations in his career, right? I played with Ryan, great guy, kind of was limited to that fighting role, but he's found his identity. And I think last year, the struggles he had early getting scratched from the lineup, he kind of went back to work, right? And when he got a chance to play again and get back in the lineup, he played much better. So I would assume he's going to use that, especially in the situation where he is in Toronto and what his role is. I like that heavy line, but again, it gets to a point when it comes playoff time, is that a line you're going to rely on? Because you're going to need scoring. They're going to be playing against faster players. So I think it's finding that right fit. And I think right now for Kampf in the middle, it helps them. But at the same time, they're going to generate offense. And this is a team that, for them, if they can get pucks in and generate a little bit of chaos in the offensive zone, maybe create an icing, and then get the big dogs out there, that's all you can really expect from them in a limited role.
And also, when you do get Pacioretty signed, he is as heavy of Max Pacioretty. I think the value with him is that there's not a lot of players who play like him anymore. You don't have a lot of guys that score goals that are big, heavy power forwards. But the thing with Max is, like, when Max is healthy, he's also got the skill to back up the power, to back up the heaviness. Not a guy that I really got along with on the ice, but always respected, because you don't like playing against a guy like that. He puts a lot of pressure on guys down below the dots, down below the hash marks. He's mean in front of the net. He's not afraid to drop his gloves if he has to. He's been a leader on teams, although, there's been mixed reviews about some of those leadership qualities, I will say. So once you sign him, I think that adds another level of heaviness. And then I look around the lineup, like, is this the year where Matthew Nyes has to take that big step and really establish himself as
his second full year?
Well, no, he's going into his third year now, I believe, not his second full year.
Second full.
So, I guess then, what do you expect to see from him? Am I unfair thinking it's time to be consistent? Because I think he had his ups and downs last year.
I don't think you are. I think for him, especially his skill set with his size, especially where he's going to be playing. If he's playing with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, this is a chance for him to really exceed, right? And get in and use his body and his size. And he is a guy that I could see kind of playing a little bit, almost like, not to compare him to, not for Johnny here, but like a Chris Kreider, right? A big body that can get to the net, create some chaos and score some goals. He has the skill set. But I also think where you're coming from saying, you know, his expectations, because he came out with such a skill set, like fitted for the NHL, right? He stepped right in right away, used his body, where I think sometimes we've just come now to accept the fact that these young kids are so good, right? And they step in right away and they can make an impact. And for him, it's on that physical side. So the opportunity to be with Matthews and Mitch Marner and to have a chance to play in that role is going to be huge. But I also think for me, the takeaway this year is what can Craig Berube do with these top guys that they know they're going to get their points. They know Nylander's locked up, right? Which is, I think, is a great situation. Marner, obviously, there's that elephant in the room, the contract stuff. But I always think of these situations. Yes, when like you remember when Barry Trotz went to Washington and he got the guys to buy in to play a better brand of hockey, and that's what I hope for and what I feel with Craig Berube coming here is maybe getting these guys to understand that you don't need your point nights, you don't need that. We need to play the right way to try to make this a winning culture, and I'm hoping that will do. And I think Matthew Knies is going to be perfect because he's still in that young superstardom role where it's going to be harder to tame guys like Matthews and Marner and Nylander, guys that have used to being the superstar now in Toronto for a long time.
Well, the culture word is interesting too. And we just talked to Billy Jaffe about it because, you know, obviously I think a lot of people watched the docuseries over the weekend. I'm not sure if you caught it. Did you see any of it? So
yeah, I'm into it. I'm like 3 episodes in. I got kids. I can't just sit and watch, you know, all day.
But I keep telling him, he's like, have you watched it? I'm like, dude, I got soccer practice, we got music class. Like, I got myself a TV for 12 hours melting while I'm eating my edibles, you know?
I got a chopped cheese sandwich. I got chips and queso, and I sat on my couch all fucking day Friday and watched that thing. But, you know, the biggest thing with the Leafs from watching that, I mean, this is obvious too over the past couple of years, is that word accountability, right? Like, you know, the whole clip that everyone talked about last year when Willie Nylander says, like, stop fucking crying, bro, stop bitching, whatever. That wasn't even at Marner. That was at Matthews. Yeah. So, you know, I think there's this whole accountability.
They gave him the C.
Yeah, but you know, that's the big thing with Chief, right? And Craig Berube is accountability, and that's why I'm personally so high on Toronto, because a guy like him can get the most out of talent like that, which you seem to believe as well.
Yeah, and I think Craig's gonna be a guy, like I played for Chief. He was our assistant when I was in St. Louis, which is a different relationship with assistant coach versus head coach. You guys understand that. But I also think he's a guy that's gonna nip stuff like that in the butt. And I think you add in a guy like Tanev, you add in some guys that have some leadership. OEL just winning a Stanley Cup. Jake McCabe is a big leader. There's a lot of guys there that I think are leaders as well, right? With these superstars that they have. But I also think a little FU match on the bench isn't the end of the world either. I've had numerous times where we've come in and we used to have, like, I had a coach in junior that always used to talk about like a 24-hour rule, right? So if say you get in a match or you're mad or something happens after a game, you know, an FU match with a player, you know, if you show up to the rink the next day and you still have a problem, okay, now we have an issue, right? Because in the moment things get heated. Like, it is a competitive game and everybody involved in it have that edge. So I don't see that necessarily as a bad thing. I think it just gets blown up because it's in a fishbowl, right? Toronto, anything that goes on, it blows up. But I also think with Craig Berube, he's also going to enjoy that kind of stuff, right? This guy wants these guys to go to war. He wants them to be competitive. So I think just getting them and having Chief channel that in the right direction is going to make this Toronto Maple Leafs team more dangerous. Because from the past, what I see from Sheldon Keefe, I think he was too much of a player's coach. He was letting them just kind of run the table and do whatever. Not that he wasn't a great coach, but I think Chief has more of a no bullshit kind of mentality.
No, I feel that too. And, you know, when it comes to blowing things out of proportion, I'm definitely one of those people as well.
That's okay.
Kobe knows that.
We're on this side of it. We're supposed to.
Exactly. And I know we're talking Leafs right now, but we have a great question in the chat for you. It has to do with the Senators pretty much, but I really wanted to ask it. So this is from Jim the Swede. Question for Carter. I heard Valaket on Kip and Bourne's show say that Ullmark loves the lifestyle as a tandem goalie and doesn't want to be the guy as a starter. As someone who played with him, is there any truth to that at all? Would love to know, because he's probably a 55, 65 game guy this year.
I don't think there's a ton of truth to that. Totally. I agree at times when I played with Linus and when he had the keys to the castle, sometimes he would come up with a little bit of, you know, he'd get a little bit of a cold, or, you know, his groin was a little sore and he couldn't make decisions and he never wanted to really kick the door in. Where for me, with my skill set, every chance I got a chance to play, I wanted to play, right? I wanted to get as many games, especially when you're playing well, right? You just want the games to keep coming to, you know, kind of pile them up. So, but I also think Linus playing with, not that I want to sit here and take credit for him. I think a lot of times Linus would do things in a locker room and players would come to me and be like, Hutz, what the hell is he doing? Like, right? Because I was always the guy that I had to have a good rapport. I wasn't good enough to, you know, go against the grain. So, But I also think he did a lot of maturing. And I think moving to Boston and being in that culture and going there and getting away from Buffalo again, where they gave all these guys, these young guys, the keys to the castle too early, and they gave them free range before really making them professional hockey players, like becoming a true pro. I think Linus is going to really do a good job in Ottawa. And I think he's ready, honestly, at this point as a family man and where he's at. So I think early in his career, I could believe that was a bit of a problem with Linus, like what he dealt with and some of the stories even before I got there. But I think the way he's matured under Boston and in that culture, he's ready to take this jump. And he's played for bad teams before. So I think he's going to really make a big impact here on this Ottawa team.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.